Hello and welcome back to Character Craft. I'm your host Mitchell Drake. We're here again doing another randomized D&D character. Let's go ahead and get the wheel spinning, see how many classes we're going to be working with. This is probably the 7th video I'm working on, so it's going to put it towards the 3rd or 4th week of releases. I made a bunch of videos early to get a head start on the channel, so if there's anything that you've recommended for videos, they're probably going to start showing up in the 2nd month, just because I wanted to get a head start, and I've been working on the 2nd month's worth of videos while completing these ones or releasing them. 2 subclasses is fine. Let's see what we can get. So we have my choice, which is great because there's a couple classes we haven't gotten yet. So let's see, we've done Sorcerer, Monk, Cleric, Ranger, Warlock. We have not done Barbarian, we have not done Artificer, we have not done Paladin, and we have not done Blood Hunter. So we've got some options. To be honest, I've never built a Blood Hunter, so that would be interesting to work with. Okay, so it's my choice, and it's a Sorcerer. I can go for a Sorcerer Paladin, kind of double into the Charisma and, you know, kind of like knock Paladin out of the way while we're here. Let's see, does Sorcerer Artificer do anything? I might have to look into that. I will be back at Hero Forge, and we'll get a character going. Bye. Okay, we are at the Forge. I chose to go with a Paladin Sorcerer for this character. Paladin and Sorcerer are probably 2 of my least played classes, so it was nice to dig through them and explore some options I'm not well versed in. I settled on an Earth Genasi, Oath of the Ancients Paladin, and Shadow Origin Sorcerer. Let's start with race, Earth Genasi. I like the Genasis a lot flavor-wise, but their features are very niche and really work best when you are using them either for non-playstyle reasons or extremely specific playstyle reasons. In this case, it was more for the specific playstyle. Earth Genasis can move over difficult floor-based terrain without it affecting them. They get the Blade Ward cantrip as a bonus action, the Pass Without a Trace spell, and basic Dark Vision. Paladins don't use their bonus action a lot, so having Blade Ward as an option is good for the action economy, but having an on-demand resistance to non-magical bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing damage is great for a tank. Pass Without a Trace is an awesome spell for clunky, loud paladins to sneak around with, and not being affected by difficult terrain means we will usually be able to get where we need to, even on the most chaotic of battlefields. Dark Vision is just good, so I'm not complaining about that either. I love the opportunity to use races like Genasi, so all these perks were just the bonus on top that really pushed it over the edge, but let's get into the classes. I started by looking into the Sorcerer options. They seemed harder to fit into the Paladin's playstyle than the other way around, and I first checked out the Divine Soul and Lunar subclasses. Divine Soul sounded like it might work well with a support paladin, while Lunar is just my favorite sorcerer subclass, and I was trying to shoehorn it into a video. Neither fit in like I wanted them, so I chose to look into the Shadow subclass. It had some cool features like Strength of the Grave that I thought would be great on a paladin. Hound of Ill Omen really sold it for me though, and seemed like a good fit for the paladin's melee fighting style. Eyes of the Dark is just cool, and was a nice little bonus for something I was already sold on, but we'll get further into the sorcerer later. Now that I had a basis for the character, I started looking through the Paladin subclasses to see what could work. I was strongly considering the Oath of Conquest Paladin and building like an edgy bounty hunter type Paladin who summons a spectral hound to hunt down their prey, but the more I looked into it, the less I liked the pairing of the Conquest Paladin with Sorcerer, so I'll keep that subclass in my back pocket for another video. I eventually chose to go with Oath of the Ancients Paladin. This subclass is very nature-themed, and I like the idea of a faithful knight and their pup fighting off the forces of evil side by side. I also like the synergy between the Hound of Ill Omen and the Ensnaring Strike spell you get for free with the Ancient subclass. Paladins are a really strong solo class, so we're starting our character off with the first 8 levels in Paladin. At level 1 we get heavy armor and a shield, lay on hands and divine senses. It's a great start. Level 2 we get Divine Smite, the Interception fighting style, and spellcasting. On level 3 we take the Oath of the Ancient subclass, which will give us Ensnaring Strike immediately, and 2 very niche channel divinity options. We also get Speak with Animals, which I think is a cool story relevant lead up to you eventually getting your Hound. At level 4 we get our first ASI. We want to raise our Constitution, Charisma, and Strength as high as possible, and we mostly plan to be a frontline fighter, so I'm going to prioritize Strength and Constitution at this point. At level 5 we get extra attack, doubling our average damage potential when we make melee attacks. We also get Misty Step and Moonbeam from the subclass spell list, which is awesome. Misty Step is one of the best spells in the game. Level 5 is just a great level overall for the Oath of the Ancients Paladin. At level 6 and 7, we get Auras of Protection and Warding. Aura of Warding can be a difficult feature to interpret for some tables, as it gives resistance to damage from spells, so make sure to confirm with your DM how they believe the feature works before you get to this point. And at level 8, we get another ASI, and we are taking the Warcaster feat. This gives us advantage on Constitution saving throws when making concentration checks, lets us use our weapon and shield to cast spells, and lets us replace an opportunity attack with a spell as long as the spell only targets that creature and takes one action to cast. That last part is going to be amazing when we take a level in Sorcerer, but you can do something hilarious here and cast Command on a fleeing creature. It won't follow the command until its following turn, but you can really make some insane strategies with this if you use a little forethought. At level 9, we are taking our first level in Sorcerer. We get a lot of immediate benefits with Eyes of the Dark and Strength from the Grave here. We also get access to cantrips, most importantly Booming Blade and Mind Sliver. Both work really well with Warcaster. Booming Blade because it lets you make a free weapon attack you'd be making with the opportunity attack, but with the added benefit of getting an automatic extra 1d8 thunder damage as the enemy is already in the process of moving away from you. Mind Sliver is great because most enemies are bad at intelligence saving throws, and the debuff to their saving throws is going to fit in really nicely with the rest of our kit, like Ensnaring Strike, Command, or just making shove attempts in general. At level 10, we get our Font of Magic, and this is sweet because it gives us an additional source of spell slots for our Divine Smites by recycling our sorcery points as a bonus action. We're taking 12 sorcerer levels, meaning we'll have 12 sorcery points to work with at the end, along with access to 6 level spell slots. At level 11, we get Meta Magic, but because we are a melee-focused fighter, most of our spells will likely be utility options, and we want to hold a lot of our sorcery points for Divine Smites and the Hound, so just choose what you feel is right. I'd personally take Heightened Spell to give a creature disadvantage on a spell saving throw if they don't already have it because of the Hound. Forcing a creature prone with Command is just that good in a lot of scenarios. At level 12, we get another ASI. I'd just bump your Constitution and Strength from here if your Charisma is already rounded out. Creatures making saving throws against you are already going to have a lot against them, so I feel you get more out of the extra damage and health. Nothing interesting at level 13, but at level 14, we finally get the Hound. The Hound uses the Direwolf stat block, but is considered a medium-sized creature instead. It is summoned as a bonus action using 3 sorcery points, hunts down a creature that you target within 120 feet, can phase through creatures and objects, and it can only use its action to attack, but does not need to be commanded, and the targeted creature rolls saving throws with disadvantage against spells you've cast on it. Because the Hound uses the Direwolf stat block, it also has Pack Tactics, meaning it rolls with advantage on attacks when a friendly creature is within 5 feet of it. Its attacks also have the potential to knock a creature prone, which is always great. The hand disappears if it is reduced to 0 hit points, if the target is reduced to 0 hit points, or 5 minutes have passed. Now we can go back to Ensnaring Strike. Ensnaring Strike is usually lackluster because of the initial and recurring saving throws offered to the restrained target to escape the effect, but the Hound gives disadvantage on saving throws for spells you've cast on enemies that they are within 5 feet of, helping to keep the target restrained longer and keep you and your pup within melee range of the target for a long time. This is also close enough for the Hound to be under both of your aura effects, your interception fighting style range, and restrained enemies attack with disadvantage, meaning this Hound is going to be very difficult to remove from the field. Take levels 15 to 20 in Sorcerer, nothing too cool happens here other than more sorcery points, higher level spell slots, and 2 ASI. I'm naming this character Auric Stonespeaker. Auric was not born in a traditional manner. They have no parents, no childhood, and instead they were mined from the stone like the other gems and minerals surrounding them. Auric was discovered by dwarven miners who have recently taken claim to the mountain of Auric's birth. The mountain was once a battleground between the invading Dao genies and the Shades who called this land their home. The war took decades to end, and once the Dao claimed victory, they enslaved the surviving Shades and tore them from their homeland, abandoning the mountains for the dwarves to find. Deep in the mines, Auric was unearthed, fully grown but clueless to the world around them. The dwarves were divided on how to handle this new being born from the earth, as Auric possessed the powers of the Dao genies and the native Shades. Some believed Auric was a threat due to their heritage, others considered them an innocent byproduct of the conflict, and some even saw the gold that ran through Auric's veins and were tempted to harvest it for themselves. All of these conversations stopped once Auric showed an incredible attunement to the minerals around them. They could sense where the deposits of gems and precious metals were with an extreme accuracy, and the dwarves saw this as an incredible opportunity. They chose to adopt Auric, teaching them the ways of the dwarves and raising them as part of their families.
All was well for about a decade, until the Dao genies discovered that their conquest had led to immense profits for the scavengers, and the Dao had returned to claim their riches. The Dao gave the dwarves 1 year to provide them with 90% of the total profit over the last decade, or the Dao would return and force the dwarves to work off their debt like the shades before them. Auric, knowing the mountain did not possess enough gold, diamonds, and minerals to satisfy the Dao's demand, chose to confront his progenitors head-on. Donned with the armor and weapons forged by his adoptive family, Auric ventures out to challenge the Dao or discover enough riches to dissuade them. I think Auric is a good choice for a player who wants to mechanically play a paladin, but doesn't want to lean into the holier-than-thou persona. Auric is clueless about how the world actually works, their moral compass isn't tuned like most people's, and it is entirely based on what is best for Auric's home and the dwarves who welcome them. Between the natural bulkiness of a paladin, the bonus action blade wards, and the attack disadvantage that restrained creatures have, Auric is a fantastic tank option that makes a great defender. The second body that you get from the Hound also adds a lot of hit points onto the field, and will split the focus away from your other party members. This is also a great choice for a player who wants a pet but doesn't want to worry about controlling them at all times. The Hound is basically a point-and-click feature. This is also the third character I've made so far with a pet. The first one was a dog, the second a dragon, and I chose to make this one a boar because it can reasonably accomplish everything on the Direwolf stat block, and it was available on Hero Forge. I've realized while making these videos that I like player pets a lot, and this is easily a great option for beginner players who aren't experienced enough to direct their pets yet. As a DM, Auric wouldn't be too much of a problem until I bring out large single enemy encounters, as Auric's pretty good at locking down enemies. The way to solve that would just be to, legendary resistances, make the monster fly or teleport out of reach of Auric. Auric really needs to be in direct conflict with enemies for them to lock them down so heavily between Ensnaring Strike and the Hound. I believe how I would play Auric is with a lot of utility spells. They're mostly a melee fighter, so they're not going to be casting in fights, and that kind of frees up a lot of spell slots that you wouldn't miss too much when you're transferring them to Divine Smites. Having some niche spells to get the party out of very unique situations on the table lets me as a DM kind of throw that weird stuff at them just to, make the paladin player feel really good about themselves. And also, I don't have to worry about the players being as stumped as they could be. I want to thank everyone for watching the video. This is the final pre-made one I created prior to launching the channel. I know the format has shifted quite a bit between each video, but please let me know what you like and didn't like in the comments. At this point, I think there are only a few classes left that we haven't made yet, with the Barbarian, Bloodhunter, and Artificer remaining, but we're at the mercy of the wheel, so hopefully they come up soon and we can kind of round out everything. I know the format's been all over the place. I've been exploring my options and combining them when they feel right. I'd really appreciate your feedback so I know how to continue with the channel going forward. This is an opportunity for you to really build a content creator that kind of, works towards your interests. I'm perfectly willing to take criticism and commentary, but I do need to receive that for me to change anything. Please also let me know your opinions on Auric, or if you have another Paladin Sorcerer multi-class that you have in mind. Thank you again. I look forward to seeing you in the future, and please sleep well.